Welcome to the Recovery Toolkit podcast. I'm Richie. I'm going to be your host. Throughout the series, we're going to talk to a range of different people who will give you tools and tips to help manage your recovery. The podcast itself is being brought to you by Epic Restart Foundation, who are a national charity who support people to rebuild a positive life after gambling harm. So this week on the Recovery Toolkit podcast, we are joined by Mark Pickering. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you might be on the Recovery Toolkit podcast.
Good morning, Richie. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
Great. I work for Epic Restart Foundation with yourself. I'm sure you'll share a little bit more about me leaving and coming back at some point during the podcast. Helping people in their recovery from gambling harm.
Yeah, so gambling addiction was something you suffered with. Yeah, do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey into recovery?
Yeah, after 5 years of my life spiralling out of control, really, and actually no one knowing that was ongoing and happening, it came to the realisation one day that I had to do something, either probably to myself or something about what I was doing. And luckily I chose the second option. I went on Google, looked at the company website, actually found a way to ring up and whistle-blow myself. And I actually made that, was it a fateful phone call? But I actually made that phone call that morning. And although my life changed radically, probably for the worst in a lot of ways, I was in a lot better place.
Yeah, and I think for me, Mark, what you're saying is you just had enough, hadn't you? You just had enough of living that life the way you were living it at the time.
Yeah, exactly, Richie. The words I use is I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. And this false life that I was living, that everybody thought I was still successful. I was really successful. I was still earning six figures, going on trips, having that life, but inside that wasn't happening.
Yeah. And from the day that you handed yourself in, what happened after that, Mark?
Yeah, I handed myself into the police as well, and at that point, luckily, charges weren't produced, and I actually became bankrupt, homeless, living in a car for around 3 months. It was obviously a difficult time, but at the same time, it helped me to start to put pieces back together, and I was in a better place than I was before, which sounds crazy. And
I think it's important that people know that, isn't it? Sometimes you have to go, to what people call the rock bottom, to be able to then face up to some of the stuff that had gone on and be able to start rebuilding your life from that point. And I know the rebuilding phase didn't quite start straight away for yourself, but after them few months living in the car and all that sort of stuff, what happened next, Mark?
Well, I remember about 3 months after living in the car, I decided I'd really got to do something, and I started to look for work, and there was this self-employed opportunity, but it meant going and staying in a hotel and being away for the weekend, and paying £200 to actually go on the actual event. So I managed to find the £200. I think I loaned it off my mum, and basically, while everybody else was staying in the hotel, I was actually living in my car, so doing the event. But I found work. I started work. My niece and her partner put me up for a while, and things started really picking back up. I started rebuilding my life. I actually did a white collar boxing match for charity, raised over 2K. But also that made me feel better about myself, and I felt like I was giving something back, which is what I wanted to do. And then 11 months later, unfortunately, CPS, Crime Prosecution Service, decided to charge me, which was fair enough. At the end of the day, I'd done something wrong, and I needed to be punished in the right way. So for the next 15 months, I went to prison. And that was really where my recovery really started, actually.
Yeah, and I've spoken to you a few times about this. I think going to prison for you was something that you put a positive spin on it, you know, as much as you can put a positive spin on going to prison, you actually thought, well, I've got to go, I'm facing the consequences, but what can I get out of being here? And how can this put us on a better footing for when I get out? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, it's really strange, Richie, because like I remember being in court and like the my defence saying that I needed a psychiatric report, and the judge agreeing because he didn't understand what I was doing, what I'd done. And I actually asked to be put on remand, and the judge like looked at me and said, "Really? Nobody does that." And I remember spending 9 weeks on remand in Lincoln Prison, and actually within that time, I managed to get an ANT status, which was unheard of. I was teaching English and maths to other people, so I was already starting to rebuild my life and build that, and help other people as part of that.
I think that's become a big part of your life now, Mark, isn't it? Is about being able to offer guidance, support, help to other people. Tell us a bit about what went on when you left prison.
Yeah, well, I left prison and I was actually on tag. Before I left prison, I got a job working at Boots in the warehouse, which was really good. But I, at 53 years old, going back to live with my mum, and obviously restricted on being able to go out as well. And at times, if I'm really, really honest, I was envious of the people that was in the open prison. They had more freedom. They had more camaraderie. I actually understood so much more about people becoming institutionalised in a quick way. I was still very grateful of my mum, obviously being able to put me up for that at that time. But at the same time, it was a difficult process. And
did that create like a new sort of sense of isolation? Would you say? Is that what you thought? You felt isolated at that time in your life, you know, which isn't a good place for anybody. But anybody who's trying to be in recovery and trying to do the right thing, I think, is quite a dangerous place to be, isn't it?
Yeah, as I talk to you later in the podcast, I think, Richie, like around about passion and doing things and avoiding that boredom and isolation is really, really important. And when you look at what's going on with footballers now who are banned from football because of their gambling, then is that the right course of action? Because at the end of the day, it forces you back into that isolation as having a tag around my ankle actually did at that time. So it was a tough 4.5 months, to be fair.
Yeah, and after 4.5 months, tag come off. Still living at home?
Still living with my mum at that point. Yeah,
still living at home.
Yeah.
What was going through your head at that point? Like where did you see your future being? Where was, you know, what were you trying to do at that point?
Well, actually getting the tag off, mate, was an amazing feeling. It's like freedom again. And because I was well qualified with regards to being a financial advisor, I'd got level 4 qualification. I thought it'd be fairly at this point now. I wasn't working at Boots anymore because it was seasonal, so I was starting to look for work, and I thought it'd be realistically fairly easy for me to get work. But actually, what had happened was that I'd gone from lying to everybody for so long and I was brilliant at that, as we all are when we get into this issue with addiction. I started become. Can you become overly honest? I think you actually can in that respect. And I was getting people ringing me up for potential interviews for jobs. And basically I would spurt diarrhea over the phone. And all of a sudden it'd be like, we need to speak to HR and get back to you. And guess what happened?
Yeah, struggle for phone calls to get back to you, I think, Mark. But I totally get that. I think people that get into recovery, and I say this to a lot of people, they get into recovery, they spend a few months in recovery, and then they want to tell the world everything, you know, and sometimes that's more damaging than it is helpful for a lot of people. And it's not because we're saying you shouldn't be honest. It's just about saying you need to work through the stuff first. You need to work through the past. You need to work through the trauma. You need to work through the experiences that you've had, so you understand them better, you understand yourself better, and you can look after yourself. And I think a lot of people in recovery, they struggle with boundaries, don't they? And I think this is what you're saying to me. You struggled with them personal boundaries around what information do I give and don't give, and how do I move forward. And what I want to do is I want to tell everyone and be as honest as I can. But actually, it was detrimental to yourself in that early recovery.
Yeah, because look, at the end of the day, you don't really want to explain the gaps in your CV, explain away why you wasn't working during that period. So effectively, you just go all in effectively and give everything. But at the same time, I was also developing really myself in the space I wanted to be in, and that was helping other people. So I did a hell of a lot. I did some with GAM Care. They provided some treatment, but as a consequence of that, I started doing a lot of volunteering for them. I went in a couple of prisons, did talks. I helped them produce an in-cell workbook during COVID. I got onto lived experience panel for the Gambling Commission. So I was starting to work in this space and actually see what the issues were and see how we can help more people. And then obviously I got an opportunity to join an organisation where I actually read what it looked like, the job role, and I thought that is absolutely perfect for me. And about 3 months later, started work, and that's been an amazing journey as well.
Let us just take you back when you started volunteering, GAM Care, Gambling Commission. What did you get out of that? What did Mark get out of that in his recovery by volunteering, doing the talks, creating the booklets, all that sort of stuff?
The main thing really, Richie, at the end of the day, it gives you a sense of purpose. And this space is amazing to both work in and to be in. People show such empathy and understanding and awareness of what you're going through, and you're not alone anymore. I wasn't alone anymore. And the amount of times you hear people say, I thought I was the only one that had a problem, and it's evident. I mean, if you look back at nearly 8 years from when I handed myself in, and I was very alone, and even like organisations like Gordon Moody, where you got the residential treatment, if I even knew that was available when I handed myself in and became homeless, I would have actually jumped at the chance.
Yeah, and I think we've moved on a long way in 8 years, haven't we? In this space, I think awareness is much greater, but still nowhere near enough. The opportunity and the support systems are better, although not perfect, and we're in this political landscape at the moment where, we're uncertain about the future and what it looks like, but there is opportunity out there for people, isn't there? I think that's the most important thing for people to hear. If you're suffering with gambling harm or gambling addiction, then you've got choices now. You've got choices of support.
I think that's the thing, Richie. At the end of the day, there's no one size fits all, is there? I've never been to GA, for instance, and I know you have. And it's just offering as many services as possible that can work for different people in different ways. And it's also collaboration is really important. We're seeing at the moment where there's a bit of a divide, but hopefully at some point we can get back to better collaboration around supporting the individuals get the support they actually need and want.
Definitely. I totally agree with that. When you first started working in the space, 3, 4, 5 years ago, what did your recovery look like then? What were the things that you were doing? Obviously, you were volunteering, you were helping people, but what was missing, or what could have improved it, or what did you have?
Yeah, I mean, when you look back nearly 8 years in recovery, it's not a straight road, is it? And my road's definitely not been a straight road. There's many bumps in the road. There's many downs as well as many ups. And I think when you look at Epic, it's navigating the downs more than the ups. Obviously, when I look back, I had a bankruptcy order for 11 years. That's still ongoing. obviously when I got out of prison, I'd nowhere to live. So luckily I had somewhere to live with my mum for a while. I got back with my partner. That worked out for a while. Then I split with my partner. I ended up having to live in an hotel room for 6 months because I couldn't find anywhere to rent because of my financial situation. So it's really difficult when you look at things that I've been through that most people have go through, and the big rocks in their life like employment, finance, relationships, housing, and their mental health. They're 5 big key things that are impacting you on a daily basis, and effectively it's how we navigate around them things and through them things that really make a difference. And also what we haven't touched on is like the shame and guilt, and I know a lot of people say we need to get rid of the shame and guilt, but that never 100% goes. So effectively you've always got something to really work on.
Yeah, I think your big rocks that you talk about there, 5 massive things, and then obviously the shame and guilt being a 6th, but they're real life problems that people in recovery are facing, aren't they? Everybody said to me, oh, once you stop drinking and stop using drugs and gambling, your life will be great. And I was like, oh, fantastic. Get into recovery, and then you're like, shit, like, how do I deal with this? Because you trying to deal with these things, debt, finances, credit ratings, struggle to get in a mortgage, well, you can't get a mortgage, can't get finance on a car, can't even get a mobile phone. That's where I found myself as well, and I know you're the same, and people don't realise that's the case, And then how do you deal with all them things without running away to the coping strategies that you used to run away to? How do you deal with all them things without burying your head in the sand? And it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, I've still got a basic bank account. I still can't get overdraft. So all these things play into your mind, and obviously in recovery you want to be strong, you want to be mentally strong, and effectively you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're going to relapse or lapse. And effectively it's like building them coping strategies, that mental awareness, having plans in place to make sure that like you avoid isolation as much as possible, avoid boredom as much as possible. But it's really hard for people when actually you've lost most of your friends, you've lost most of your colleagues, because most of the time people will lose their jobs, they'll lose their homes, they'll lose the family at times. Luckily, my daughter still talks to me, but and it's been a rock and brilliant. But unfortunately, at the same time, my son still doesn't really talk to me. So there's so many areas of people's lives that we don't think about that is still a massive issue. And I've been lucky enough to be in a position where I think doing work in this space actually keeps you going on the straight and narrow. So it's as much help to you as it is to the individuals that you're helping.
Yeah, totally. I think one of my big values is help other people to help myself.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people say, oh, you must get loads of like joy from your job and seeing people making progress and, helping other people. It must be fantastic to see all this stuff. And it is. But deep down, really, I'm going, it fucking helps me as well. It saves me from going back down that path, because it does, be the example you want to see in others. That's something else that I try and live my life by. So doing the right thing, staying on track, staying, meditating, getting in the sea, doing all these things that are going to help Richie stay on track. Yes, they'll look good to the outside world, but actually they're about me doing what I need to do. And all them big rocks that you talked about there, they're not easy to deal with. How did that affect Mark as a person? How did that affect Mark as, your confidence, your self-worth, your self-efficacy, all of them things? Because you were quite a high profile, you had quite a high profile job and, quite successful in a lot of people's eyes. So what did that do to you?
Yeah, you still got the ups and downs of life, and you still like, there's times when you're not feeling great, and like I had my passion. My passion was helping people in finance, and I loved what I did, and I obviously can't go back to doing that, but I have replaced that with helping people in this space. And one of the benefits of doing that is trying to be present. Being present is really, really important. But going back to what you said, how do I deal with that? Is that effectively we've done lots of events, and like we talk about like people going on these events and not thinking about the whole thing, but just taking some golden nuggets. And I've got a few golden nuggets that I use in general that brings me back to being centered and looking at what's important to me now, and have I improved as a person? Have I changed as a person? And the real benefit in that is that when somebody else sees that change in you and tells you, because your confidence, again, a little bit like your self-esteem, is shattered in a way, Richie, at times, and that shattered will come back to you at times as well. So it's really important that you try and bring yourself back to being centered and knowing what your worth is, and to not only other people but yourself.
Yeah, it's so important. Confidence is, something that is stripped from a lot of people. You end up in these situations and in recovery, and it's hard, isn't it? It's hard to keep picking yourself back up. I think resilience is the number one thing people need to learn. And for me, I have a saying now, and the saying for me is, I'll get through it, because my past experiences haven't been great, haven't been easy, have been quite difficult, but I got through them. Not always in the best way, or with the best behaviour, or with the best mannerisms, or all them things, but I got through them. So whatever I'm presented with in the future, I truly believe I'll get through it. I have that belief now, and that's very different, because my old belief was, when it gets too difficult, I'll take the easy way out. And luckily I didn't do that. But like you said, Mark, we've been lucky enough to attend some of the events that Epic Restart Foundation do multiple times now. And that just helps, doesn't it? It just helps build that resilience. It helps build the confidence. It helps build the coping strategies and the tools that you need to deal with what we class as legacy harms. All them big 5 rocks that you spoke about there, legacy harms of gambling addiction, aren't there? And I think that's important that we address them. I see a lot of people trying to help people around finance and sorting debt out, and there's a need for that. But I would never have picked up the phone and rang somebody to sort my debt out until I had the confidence to do it, until I had the self-belief that I could face it, because I didn't really know what the extent of that was, and when I found out, I had to shit myself, but I dealt with it. And that's hard for people to do, is to face up and deal with everyday life, everyday problems, without using all the things they used to use.
Definitely. We was driving here this morning, Richie, and like on the radio, like the guy was talking about it is what it is. And I actually like using that sentence, and it made us smile, didn't it? Because just saying it is what it is actually makes a difference.
Yeah, totally. And I think both of us now sit here working for Epic Restart Foundation, and what that's done is give us a reason, well, it's given me a reason anyway. I can only speak for myself, but I sit and do the job that I do now only because of all the stuff I went through. If I hadn't gone through all of that stuff, I wouldn't be sat here recording this podcast. I wouldn't be sat working for Epic Restart Foundation. I wouldn't be having an impact on other people. So all of that negative stuff, potentially, if you want to put it in the negative box, it served its purpose. And the fact that I got through it, there was a time when I didn't think I was going to get through it, but the fact that I did get through it, I look back now and go, they were all the lessons that I needed to learn to get to this point in my life. And that's sometimes hard for people to come to terms with, especially in early recovery, where you're just trying to get through each day and make sure you stay on the right path. But now I can make sense of it. And that's just my story. I've created that myself, but it serves us. And I think we all need to look for stories, or to create stories or proof or evidence that we're on the right path and we're exactly where we need to be at this moment in life. And if you do that, I think you can take responsibility. Take responsibility for where you are, and then decide where you want to go. And I know from what you've said, from handing yourself in and volunteering and all that sort of stuff, you took responsibility. How important do you think it is that we stop playing the victim and we start taking personal responsibility?
Yeah, it's so important, and like I'm going to swear now, Richie, but owning your own shit. It's so important at the end of the day. It's like if like, a lot of people in this space do blame the industry, and the industry is responsible for a lot of things. I don't like getting into politics, but like I do like the ability to own your own shit and actually say what it is, but like effectively be in a position where you take that responsibility and then use it in a positive manner. Because like everybody's got addiction in some way. We're all in recovery from something.
We might not all be in recovery. We probably all could be in recovery.
yeah, we could definitely all be in recovery, and if effectively it's having that positive mental attitude that really does see you through and build that resilience to manage your everyday life, and that's what it's all about. And unfortunately, some people are stronger than others, but effectively everybody can continue to move forward and do better.
Yeah, I think something we use, is create a life you don't need to escape.
Yeah,
and I think that's so important, isn't it? Because we all look to escape in different ways at different times in our life, whether that's with drink, drugs, gambling, could be with shopping, could be with food, could be with sugary food. Like there's so many different things out there that we use as little bit vices, isn't it? And I think, how do I become a better version of myself?
We're not perfect, neither are we, mate? At the end of the day, it's like,
well, speak for yourself.
Even if there's a big share bag of like Maltesers sitting in the cupboard, and I'll go and open them, and then I'll try and put them back in the cupboard, and 10 minutes later they're out again, and then they're in again, and then they're out again. It's like, look, we still have our vices, don't we?
Yeah.
And we still always have things we need to work on and do better.
But do you know what it is, though? I think that's okay. I think it's okay. If we have the awareness of it, that's okay.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's that, you sitting there, eating a full bag of Maltesers. We know it's not the right thing to do, but if I have the awareness that actually I'm going to do it anyway, it's better of two evils sometimes.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? If that's the way I'm coping now. But what I would always encourage people to do, though, is go, why am I sitting eating this whole bag of Maltesers? Is there a reason other than I just like them? Am I trying to avoid something? Or am I sitting with a bit of a uncomfortable pain or discomfort in us? Like explore what it's about. If you're constantly going for the bag of cookies, like I do at the minute, then ask yourself why. What's that about? So there's lots of clues, isn't there? Our behaviours and our actions leave lots of clues in our recovery, and if we're willing enough to open our eyes and see them, we can learn a lot from them. And I think
definitely, yeah.
I think that's really important for people. I want to move on to like your recovery now. So I know you're doing working with us at Epic Restart Foundation, but what do you do outside of work now? Well, what is the passion? What's the purpose outside of work, and what does your life look like now?
Yeah, well, I've still got a select group of friends that have been really good, and like we play golf once every 2 weeks. There's 5 of us. We all come together. Great spirit. Play different courses every time we play, and that gives me fulfillment. But like the main thing that I started to do around about 18 months to 2 years ago, and solely probably down to my age, to be fair, Richie, which is like getting closer to 60 now. It's like I thought about taking up walking football, so I saw an advert, and if I'm really honest, the day that I was supposed to be going, I was really apprehensive about going, because obviously my history, and you worry about bumping into somebody that may know you for the wrong reasons and that may pipe up, But anyway, I put my brave face on, built up my resilience, and decided to still go. 18 months later, like, I'm in a position. During that 18 months, I split with my partner. We're now back together again, and that's been a roller coaster journey as well. But during the split, I was travelling 40 miles each way just to play walking football on a Tuesday night, even in December. And that shows you, and that's where really, to be fair, one of the things, one of my 5 pillars of keeping me in the position I'm in is passion, and finding a passion that it's not a substitute for what we had before, but something that different that can focus your mind, give you that positive affirmation, keep you from being negative, and get you active and get you out and about is having that passion that you will continue to do something even if it's really difficult.
Yeah, definitely. I think I imagine, I don't know this, but I imagine you've got quite a good group of people there as well. Like, have a laugh, camaraderie, new friendships, all of that sort of stuff. That I know you said you've got that group of 5 people that you've had around for a long time, but you've got this new group of people now as well. I think that's important that we try and get into other community groups, into other settings, and find out, where are our people? Where are the people that we can connect with and we have something some similarities with? That isn't just all about recovery.
It's really important to get them new connections, Richie, and meet new people and do new things. At the same time, it's understandable why people have got such anxiety around doing that, because with the guilt, the shame, the stigma, all attached to what we've done in the past, and the lack of confidence, the lack of self-esteem, all these things play into that. And we can talk about this later probably, but the chimp part of your brain telling you, well, don't go tonight. You don't need to go. Just stay sitting on the sofa and you'll be fine. And effectively, it's overcoming that strong part of your brain trying to protect you, but actually, it's not necessarily protecting you.
Yeah, I think the number one thing our brain does try to keep us safe.
Yeah,
try to keep us alive. That's what it's there for. So putting yourself in an uncomfortable, unknown, uncertain situation, especially when you've already created loads of stories that you're going to bump into Bob, who knows me past, or you're going to bump into somebody else that, is going to slate us or didn't like us, or all of that sort of stuff. We create that anxiety in ourselves, don't we? And that's what we really have to come to terms with in recovery is, I've got a new life, I can detach myself from the old life. I learned a lot of lessons and I became a better version of myself now, and I can move on. But like you say, it's hard. It's very, very difficult. And for me, it's courage. Courage is the thing that lies at the first step, isn't it? A lot of people say, when I'm confident, I will go and do. When I'm confident, I'll start a podcast. When I'm confident, I'll facilitate a workshop. Like, if I'd waited until I was confident to do any of them things I've just mentioned, they just wouldn't happen, I have to be okay at doing them when I'm not very good at them. Knowing, hopefully, in time, you get better.
Yeah.
So that takes courage, because Richie, the old Richie, only ever wanted certainty in life. I'm only doing that if that certainly happens. And I say that even though I took a risk every day by gambling, but it was that buzz that I got of the potential win or whatever that kept us in that loop. But I think it's really important that people know you only ever get confident by doing.
I agree.
You've got to do it. So you're saying you went to walking football, you were apprehensive, should I go? You've done it, and 18 months later, it's become a staple in your recovery, hasn't it? It's become one of the most important things that you do in the week. And actually, you've had some good experiences, I think, as well. Do you want to share some of them things that have come from doing walking football?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's come from it is that like 4 years ago I had a heart attack, so I had to have a stent fitted. That was an experience and a half, getting blue lighted up to the hospital, But moving on from that, I've actually played a couple of games for an England team against, and I think we've got an upcoming match against Australia in May, of people that have suffered from cancer, heart attack, stroke, or Parkinson's. So again, meeting new people and being part of something different, and also highlighting that actually even when you suffer things like that, then there is a way back, and you can still be active and you can still be involved. You can meet new people, and you don't have to be isolated.
Yeah, and for me, that's a story of hope.
Yeah.
You know, I think we talk about hope all the time in our program. I hope people if they get nothing else from listening to any of these podcast episodes, they get some hope, you know, especially if they're still in active addiction or they're very early in recovery. I hope you get some hope from the fact that there is a new life out there for you if you want it. You just got to do a little bit of work, have a little bit of courage and take the first steps, because who knows where that might end up, you know. And that's what you've found, isn't it?
I think I've not used the word courage in the last 8 years, and it's funny you should bring it up. And now I'm starting to think about all the things in the last 8 years where I've been courageous, and at the end of the day, there's still some guilt and shame there, if I'm honest. But actually, I've done a lot of courageous things too, and me and us and we have helped a lot of people during that process, which is fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 3 years ago we started at Epic Restart Foundation together. It's my 3-year anniversary today when we're recording this, and what we've achieved in 3 years at the foundation, what my life now looks like compared to what it looked like then, is completely different. Completely different. I would love to sit here and say it was all dead plain sailing, but that would be the biggest lie ever. It hasn't been. There's been ups and downs, but we've got through it. You know, I think we've got a good product. We've got a good product. We help lots of people, and yeah, I think we've got to be proud. Sometimes we've got to be proud that we've come so far. You know, and I sit here and say I've been here for 3 years, but I started at the same time as you. Mark had a little period of absence from the foundation that he knew I had to mention on this podcast. But I'm so glad that you're back with us. You know, you bring a lot to the team. You're a big personality in a small team. So, you know, it's good to have you back at the foundation. I'm pleased you're there. And
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. Thanks for listening to the Recovery Toolkit podcast. If you took something positive from it, then why not subscribe? If you or somebody you know has been suffering gambling-related harm, why not head over to our website where you can join our community? The link is in the show notes.